the city or jurisdiction, and then while everybody's introducing themselves, I'll see if I can get my audio to work.
Okay, we've got Met Council.
Good morning, I'll jump in. I'm Molly Cummings. I'm Vice Chair of the Met Council, and I represent District 5, Hopkins, Edina, Richfield, and Bloomington.
Is Councilmember Ferguson on the line? Otherwise, Hennepin County. Commissioners from Hennepin County.
Hennepin County Commissioner Debbie Gotel, Vice Chair of the Hennepin County Board, District 5, Bloomington, Richfield, and most of Eden Prairie.
Good morning, everyone. Chris Latondras here, Hennepin County Commissioner for District 6. That's Edina, Hopkins, Minnetonka, Northern Eden Prairie, and 12 other cities around Lake Minnetonka, and I'm Vice Chair of ICRA.
Hi, everyone. This is Ely Farhat on behalf of Commissioner Green.
Hey, how about City of Eden Prairie?
Kathy Nelson, City Council, sitting in for Mayor Ron Case today.
Morning. City of Edina. City of Hopkins.
Good morning, Jason Gadd, Mayor of the City of Hopkins. Glad to see everybody this morning.
Morning. City of Minneapolis. City of Minnetonka.
Good morning, I'm Brad Wiersum, Mayor of the City of Minnetonka, and I have pretty weak internet up north here, so I'll do my best, but you won't see too much of me.
A City of St. Louis Park.
Jake Spano here, Mayor in St. Louis Park. Good morning, everybody.
Morning. MnDOT.
Yeah, good morning. It's Mike Barnes, Metro District Engineer.
Good morning. And how about our Business Advisory Committee?
Morning, Will Roach.
Good morning, Dan Duffy, Co-Chair of Business Advisory Committee.
And the Community Advisory Committee?
Good morning. This is Assad Adewade with New American Development Center.
Okay, Chair Zelli, that is the list.
Okay, I think I've got the audio working now. I apologize. And if you'll see, I am a visual example of what happens when you go out of town. I am a poster child now for pedestrian safety. I fell, and so I don't mean to scare anybody. Thank you and welcome. And this is also when you go away, your audio suddenly goes on the fritz. So I'm glad you can hear me now. And welcome, everybody. It's great to see so many familiar and friendly faces. This is an update for the CMC. And I have to say in advance that I am got to leave a hard stop at 11 o'clock. I know this is slated to 11:30. So hopefully we'll be mostly wrapped up by then. But if not, I will miss the very beginning with my audio and miss the very end with another meeting. But first, we want to approve the February 3rd Southwest Light Rail CMC meeting minutes. And Don, maybe we can do a quick roll. Those minutes were sent in advance. And if there's any quick, first, is there any edits or corrections that anybody has?
Chair Zelli, I'll move it. Gotel.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there a second?
Cummings seconds.
Thanks, Molly. And Dawn, if there's no other discussion, please take the roll.
Councilmember Cummings.
Aye.
Commissioner Latondras.
President.
Commissioner Gotel.
Aye.
Kathy Nelson of Eden Prairie.
Aye.
Dear God.
Aye.
Mayor Wearsome, Mayor Wearsome of Minnetonka, Mayor Spano,
Aye.
Mike Barnes,
Aye.
Bill Roach or Dan Duffy,
Aye.
Aye.
Assad Alwid,
Aye.
and Sharzeli.
Aye. The minutes are approved. I'll just be really brief in terms of an update. I know everybody has been familiar with the progress and certainly the challenges of the past year, not least of which is the community tragedy, pain, the kind of effects from both the pandemic, but also clearly social unrest. And this is really kind of shows that these large public works projects are really important to serve our community. So we're going to hear from our staff a construction update. I think many of you have heard about some of the challenges. This is not only the largest public works project in the state's history, but certainly the most complicated. And it seems like we've got everything from co-location, tunnels, wetlands, flyovers. If there's a complication to transit projects, we have got them. So we're going to stay with it. We are committed. We really appreciate everybody in this room's support and engagement in this process all along. And we're really looking forward to getting nailed down the actual time frame, which is under review. But most importantly, we'd kind of looking forward to this being the spine of many other interconnected transit projects in the future. So with that, I'll ask Southwest Light Rail Project Director Jim Alexander to kick us off and tell us what we should know. Welcome, Jim.
All right, thank you, Chair. This is Jim Alexander. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Coming across? Okay, good. So Jason, if you could advance the slide to number 5 there. So you may recall when we met in February, we talked about some challenges we have with the project, and I wanted to give you an update on where we are with those challenges and just kind of get you kind of oriented. Those two issues revolved around the quarter protection wall in the eastern part of the project in Minneapolis, and the other piece is a secant wall issue associated with the Kenilworth Tunnel. And so for the first piece, we have now signed a change order with the civil construction contractor on that piece, and I've got another slide to talk about that in a moment. But on the secant wall, we're still working on technical details on that, and we still need to get a change order for that. But as we presented these back in February and even earlier this year, we had talked about these two elements of causing a pretty significant impact to the project, both to the schedule and the budget. And I get a lot of questions about this. When are we going to have revenue service? We originally slated for 2023, and I can tell you that that's not going to happen. But at this juncture, we're still working on the schedule. It's called a rebaselining, or kind of reestablishing the milestone dates for not only the civil construction contract, but the systems construction contract as well. So maybe you could advance the next slide there, Jason, slide 6. So as I indicated, the quarter protection wall, we have completed a change order that was done earlier this spring. And so that work is underway. I have a photo to show that. And then the secant wall, as I indicated, we're still working on that process. But associated with the secant wall is we also need to reach agreement with the civil construction contractor on how they're going to resequence the tunnel construction. As you may recall, back in February when we talked about this, the secant wall is an integral piece. It's right kind of not in the middle, but it's in far enough within the tunnel itself, and that tunnel is about a half mile long, that the contractor really needs to resequence how they're going to do this tunnel construction. So we still need to resolve that issue as well, just giving that we're a very tight corridor and limited availability to get access to the construction site. So as I indicated, we will need to still get through the secant wall and the resequencing, but kind of the bigger lifts we have are we need to reestablish the schedules with the civil contractor and the systems contractors, and to get that established before we can then get our sites on a revenue service date. So, Mr. Chair, maybe I'll pause there. Maybe there are any questions on those two items.
Any questions for Jim on these items?
All right. Well, we'll
All right.
move on to. So I have a number of slides just kind of starting from the west out of Southwest Station. We are making a lot of progress. If you haven't been out there, you might want to go take a look and follow the cranes and the bridges. A lot of stuff happening out there. This is a very complex site out of Southwest Station. We're building a parking ramp, 450 stalls to join up to the 900 plus existing ramp out there. Off to the left is where the bus drop off is going to be, and the LRT station is going to actually be under that first level there, and where that kind of boom truck is sitting in the distance, that's where a waiting area is going to be located. We have a number of piles here that we're still driving piles later this year, but very soft soils in this area, but work is progressing very well. Next slide, please. So this is our first LRT rail that got starting in place late last month, and so this is on Prairie Center Drive Bridge, just east of the Southwest Station. So we're excited about that happening. Next slide. So station work in Prairie Town Center is coming along well. You can see some good shape getting developed there in terms of the station itself. Next slide. This is kind of a MSE, a mechanically stabilized earth wall that's really serves as the abutment for the 9 Mile Creek crossing. Just this side of the picture is Flying Cloud Drive. So that bridge is going to be pretty much a superstructure will be well established by this year here. Next slide. If we get into the Golden Triangle area, you can kind of see some of the colors starting to happening with some of the stations. We did work with the 5 cities on color coordination for these stations, and it's coming along well nicely. You can see off in the distance, off to the right is a large bridge, which gets the next image where we're placed some decking. Next slide there, Jason. See the folks up there doing the work. You can see Optum in the background where our City West station is located. And next slide, please. So this makes our way up to the kind of the city limits of Eden Prairie, Highway 62 off to the left there. This is the south segment or the west segment of the 62 tunnel. It's coming along pretty well. You can see there's off in the distance, there's a number of retaining walls that are being built to lead up to that tunnel. We have shifted the traffic. Thank you, MnDOT, for coordinating with us on this. You know, it's been a lot of disruption as we've been having to move the Highway 62 back and forth. We're looking to bring 62 back to its final location later this year, after this tunnel this portion of the tunnel gets completed. This is about a 500-foot long tunnel that'll be under Highway 62 to carry the LRT trains. Next slide, please. This is Opus Station. So just kind of get you oriented out off in the distance where the cranes are. That's where 62 is. You can see Optum's tower off to the right. This is the station itself. Next slide, please. We make our way the north end of Opus, and this is where the LRT will go under a couple of roadways. This is kind of hard to tell, but where those 2 workers are is a roadway bridge deck for Smetana. Feltel is a road that will tee into that. That's on a bridge as well that still has to be constructed, but where that crane is based at, that's essentially where the LRT is going to go through and under that bridge and make its way onto this next slide, Jason, to the long bridge over the wetlands we have there, about 3,000-foot long bridge that's well underway at both ends of that project. Next slide, please. I think we got Shady Oak Station Bridge is coming along nicely. It's at kind of the western end of Hawkins. Next image, please. This is work that's we just finished up doing some new concrete work in the intersection of 8th Avenue and Excelsior. This is on 8th itself. You can see the track crossings just off to the right is where the downtown Hopkins station is. We'll see the next image. Maybe go on to the next slide there. So there's downtown Hopkins really taking some shape there. And next image. So this is, if you haven't been out to Hopkins area, Excelsior, you should go out and take a look at it. This photo doesn't quite do the justice. I think I showed something in February. It showed kind of a profile of it, but this is the cantilevered Excelsior Bridge. We have about a 400-foot span that has to go over the railroad track and over that diagonally crossing roadway to take care of LRT up and over those two functions. And so these are the workers that are working on this, what's called a form traveler, to essentially extend the cast in place concrete structure as they move along to one pier to another. And I think the next image is showing kind of an interior view of all the intricacies of what's going on there. Very, very detailed construction that they have to do. They have to pre-stress these the bands in there to make sure we have a strong, secure structure to carry the LRT. We gave a tour last month with Three Rivers. We had some City of St. Louis Park folks along with us. This is down on Lake Road for the trail underpass, where we have the west segment completed, and contractors working on the east segment right now. And so we had kind of a little note of that. We did put out a notice to do some tours. Those filled up pretty quickly. We're going to be looking to do some subsequent tours later this summer, and kind of show you what's going on. But I think it was helpful, I think, to show some folks. We had a couple of commissioners from the board there on this to show kind of the complexities of what we're up against in terms of building this project. And so I think folks got a good flavor for that. Next slide, please. This is not really much to see here in terms of just a lot of dirt, but there was a pretty extensive soil improvement program here. We had some very soft soils that we had to remove and replace. And so the station platform is going to be located here, where you see off in the distance, you see some sheet piling under the railroad tracks off to the right. That's where the trail underpass will go over to the main trail, South Cedar Lake Trail, that runs along the tracks. And so that's getting well underway. And then we make ourselves into Minneapolis, where the Kenilworth LRT tunnel is just excavation in process for that tunnel. Next slide, please. This is the Cedar Lake Channel Bridge, just north of that, where the abutments are in place for the LRT bridge. You can see off to the left is the freight bridge that's been constructed, and off to the right is the existing trail bridge, which will eventually be replaced with a new pedestrian bridge. And I think I've got a couple more slides here. Here's West 21st is starting to take shape here, getting the foundations in place. And next slide, please. This is the drilling shafts for the corridor protection. We have a number of these shafts to do, and the contractor is well underway with that work. Quite a bit of work to do yet, though, on this piece. It's under I-94 there, and then just off to the east from there is our structure that will carry the LRT out of the freight rail corridor and up into the Royalston area. And you can see just off to the right is an abutment for the Glenwood Avenue Bridge, and pier for that bridge as well. So that work is well underway here. So we have some other work going on, the Franklin O&M modification. Next slide there, Jason. So get you oriented. I think I've shown this in the past, but work we're doing, this is the existing facility before we started doing construction. Next image. This is what it's going to look like when it's all done. We're essentially expanding the maintenance facility to the north in that lower circle there, and that next piece right to the right of it is our rail control center up above the maintenance facility. We're also expanding the sand wash bay, is where the operations folks currently could only wash one car at a time. And with this modification, they'll be able to do a 3-car consist, which makes maintenance and just getting oriented much more easily done. Next slide, please. So here's a couple of images of what things are looking like out there. This is that kind of looking south at that north end where called the North Yard, where that maintenance facility has been brought out, and you can see the rail control center enclosure up above. And a lot of track work underway to get trains into the facility. And next slide. So this is off to the west of the building where we call this a west runner. This is an area where we'll be able to store some of the vehicles that come in. We're really cramming a lot of vehicles since we had to change the program to get rid of the OMF in the Hopkins. We've had to do a number of modifications. So very tight site. We kind of had to work with what we had here. And so we're able to utilize this space to store about 11 vehicles that normally we like to have these stored inside. So there's going to be a management issue that operations will have to be faced with. But we kind of had to do what we had to do to make things fit. Next, I've got a couple of images of first article equipment for traction power. This is under the systems contract that we have. This facility will actually be going out to the Hiawatha or the Franklin maintenance facility. As we're adding 27 vehicles to that site, we need to have additional power to manage those additional vehicles. And so this is the housing of that traction power substation. And I just have a couple of images of componentry. The first one, go on to the next slide there, Jason. This is just some componentry that goes into that. You can see all the electronics here, very sensitive equipment. This will be inside the traction power facility, which is kind of air conditioning. It has heat in there as well. So you have to make sure these componentries are in well and good working order. So it needs conditioned space. And then the next slide is I think another first article item for signal processor. Just kind of get an idea. It's just a lot of electronic gizmos here that we need to operate the system. And I got a slide about light rail vehicles. This is what the new vehicles look like. I think we talked about this in the past. This is our 301, the first car of the 27, where we've expanded the aisleway in the middle of the car to handle wheelchair down the whole length. We think that's a good improvement. We did a lot of work with the Transportation Accessibility Advisory Committee back several years ago to come up with this reconfiguration. And so look forward to that as these trains start getting into operation on the existing blue and green lines. And with that, Chair, that's my presentation. Be glad to take any questions.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. And that's pictures speak 1,000 words. That is really impressive to see the amount of work that's been done. And thanks for focusing in on those complicated areas. Any questions for Jim from anybody? I have one quick question on those seat covers and that picture of the beautiful new wide berth train sets. Are those plastic or are they fabric or are they combination?
They are plastic, so they match essentially what we are putting on the rest of our fleet.
Great. Well, and I think Commissioner Fernando mentioned in the chat, we're all looking forward to tours. Pictures are great, but maybe I think later in the summer, fall, we're going to have tours. We have some already lined up that are selling out. Let's make sure we prioritize some CMC members to maybe we can have some organized visits.
Sure, we can definitely do that. I think it's really good for folks to see what's going on out there. As I indicated, I thought the tour with the Three Rivers was very illustrative for folks to understand what it takes to get something like this built. It's just it's a lot of challenges.
Yeah, and if I may, Mr. Chair, it's Irene.
Sure.
Yeah, I think I would imagine that at some point inside the year 2021, a coordinated CMC tour, at some point, aspects of in-person are certainly returning, and so perhaps that the tour can align with a CMC meeting. It might be, yeah, we go through the images anyway, so to kind of physically be on site and really get a sense of what's taking place would be interesting to me, at least.
Great idea.
Question, Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Jim, I on the 301, I love the accessibility aspect. I think that is a huge improvement for us. I'm really excited to see that. I'm wondering, does that change the capacity of the car in any way?
Mr. Chair, community members, it does. I don't recall how many seats we lose. It's a handful that we do lose because of that. But I think it's a better orientation, a better fit from what we have.
I think it's an important improvement, so I'm glad that we're doing it. Thank you for that.
Mr. Chair, may I go tell?
Please, Commissioner.
So first of all, it's really great to see the pictures and to see this. And actually, I'd like to get out sooner rather than later because I like to see things under construction. So if there's any opportunities to do a walk through, through parts of this, I'd be really interested in doing that. The other thing is I know there's a lot of complicated things that have gone on. So first of all, I understand all the things we've had to do with the change orders and all, but are we coming any closer to making sure what we have dates on some of these things? I mean, we preliminarily had some. Is it solidified now? Where are we on that?
Yes, Mr. Chair, committee members, we're in the middle of that in negotiations with our civil contractor, and we've also been engaging our systems contractor. And so we're not there yet. I would say we still have some work to do before we're going to get those dates identified in terms of when we'll have a baseline set up for both of those contracts, which leads up to identifying the revenue service date.
Okay. Then let's move on to a DBE workforce update report from John Tao, who's part of our Office of Equal Opportunity, and going to talk about where we stand on the project so far. Welcome, John. And John, if you're speaking, we're not hearing, at least I'm not.
Chair, I'm wondering if John was having technical difficulties because we weren't able to hear him earlier before the meeting started. And if we don't hear from him, I'd be glad to go through the slides. John's going to be the expert on them.
Well, why don't, while John is trying to figure out his audio, and I had that issue at the start of the meeting, so that seems to be the day for it. Maybe, Jim, if you're familiar with these figures and the results to date, you can start while he's working on his audio.
Sure. Maybe before I begin, there was a package that we sent out before the meeting that I don't know if everybody's had a chance to take a look at, but that's a good reference material to talk about DB and workforce. So here's a listing of our main contracts that we have and the status, and we take this into end of April, where the LMJV, this is the civil contractor, 16% goal, and they're sitting a little over 20%. That's been kind of sitting a little over 20%. And I know the JV is very active in improving on those numbers as we move along in this contract. The APJV, this is Aldrich Parsons joint venture for the systems contract, 12% goal, and they're just over 16%. And this is actually a good sign early, so it's early into this project or this contract, because they're not really constructing a lot yet. They're really going through first article production and a lot of testing. And so it's a good sign that they're up to 16% this early in the game. LS Black is the contractor for the Franklin O&M piece that we talked about, 50% goal. They're just under 20%. And then overall, we have a 17% goal for these construction contracts, and we're at about 18.5%. So
Hello.
next slide. Oh, hi, John. Are you back?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay, I'll hand it off to you then.
Wonderful. Sorry, everybody. Good morning. So yeah, as Jim shared, all of the construction contracts are exceeding the goals, so that's always a huge advantage for us as we are continuing the work. I also want to share that we have included the disaggregated DBE contract data as a handout, so hopefully you all had a chance to take a look at that. Jumping into slide 42. All right, so the civil contract, as you can see, has plateaued, and we hope to maintain this percentage. There was a recent change order for the disposal of contaminated materials, but the great thing we want to share about that is that one of the DBE firms doing the trucking is participating and increasing the contract amount, so that will help us continue to maintain this participation. Slide 43. And then the systems contractor has a DBE firm working on the stations where the civil contract is far enough along and is permitting them to work. So you can see in some of the pictures that Jim shared that there was some work on the light rail stations. So slide 44, please. And then the Franklin contract is at about 57% completion regarding the payments and billing. And we have some DBEs that are performing painting and installation of the ventilation and the interior construction. So that is also participation that we hope to continue to monitor and maintain. And then before I jump into the workforce, if there are any questions about the DBE aspects or of this, I can answer them.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
So just what are we going to look at the disaggregated data in more detail on the contract side as well?
John, you can go ahead. Yep.
Yeah. So for the disaggregated data, if you have questions, I can answer them. Otherwise, I can make sure that we include some of the slides next time and make it as a part of the presentation.
Yeah, that'd be great because, you know, as we've talked as a region about reducing racial disparities, particularly in the African American community, you know, we're doing phenomenal overall, right? But we have, you know, less than 1% of the contract is with African American contractors, right? And obviously they're a much higher percentage of our community than that. So Hispanic, or, you know, is a little bit higher, but so just wanting to just understand. I know we're overall the goal is phenomenal, but you know, we just, as long as everybody here and all the electeds are clear that these goals don't help achieve or reduce racial disparities because of where the money goes to. So.
And I would suggest that's a really important point, and thank you, Commissioner. I believe we have sent out a report in advance. If not, we can certainly get it to you that has a lot of that.
Yeah, right. That's the data I'm just looking at, Chair.
Right, exactly.
Ellie?
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner.
Do you perchance have recommendations on how we might correct the disparity you're outlining? And if that's for a later meeting, that's great. Really appreciate the specificity that the chart may not always match the specific outcome, so I'm really grateful to hear that. But should there be considerations of actions that we may be able to shift either for this project or for future projects, I think that this group would be grateful to learn your viewpoint given the proximity you have to this topic.
You know, there's a certainly great work being done by the DBE and Workforce Advisory Committee, and they're, I think, one of a number of groups that are wrestling with this, as we are at Met Council. So that is worth a future conversation. I will say it is a work in process. This is to really address these issues having to do with supporting Black-owned businesses, but the first step among many is to actually have really clear data that shows kind of where we are, and then do some goal setting and strategies to get to those goals. So.
Certainly, and I think that's, if I may, I think the strategy, getting a sense of the particulars of an issue is always kind of difficult in a meeting of this size, and actually, how much time a topic can receive. So, should there be a follow-up meeting or a follow-up memo or an additional, even informally, a table on how we might consider that very good point of overall numbers are looking good, but the specifics of disparities might be deserving of some additional attention. I'd be happy to raise my hand and be a part of that effort.
Great. We'll work on setting up a separate, and those that have an interest in participating will set up a future meeting where we can have that deeper dive discussion.
Wonderful. Thank you.
All right. So I think that I would also add that the DBE, some of the strategies to help increase participation with other ethnicity groups, I would say would be a great time, for instance, like the Blue Line project, where it's early on, to be able to break down the contracts into smaller pieces so that DBE firms can compete for them. It's much more of a challenge at this point when the contract is into construction already. But I think we can also look at more conversations with the contractors too for any different scopes that they have not performed yet. So jumping into the workforce participation, slide 45 here, you can see that the participation that we have achieving for cumulatively is 8% for women and 21% POCI. And that is on par with the achievement of other construction contracts within our region. So our project here is facing some of the same barriers as a lot of the other construction contracts and the construction industry. I also want to point out that within your handouts is the disaggregated workforce data trends since the start of your this contract. What you will notice in there and in the next coming slides is that the workforce participation is bouncing back after the winter slowdown. So as summer continues to progress, we will continue to see more participation. Next slide, please. And then we are working with the prime contractor and meeting with them every month along with MDHR, the Department of Human Rights, to talk about the prime contractor's progress and good faith efforts. And in some of those conversations, they shared that they've been doing outreach with the community-based organizations such as Summit Academy and Goodwill and some of the other workforce development agencies within our region to find different strategies and engage and meet with their participants. In addition to that, we're engaging the contractors and asking them to hold their subcontractors accountable and asking the subcontractors about their own contributions towards increasing the participation and what are their subcontractor good faith efforts towards the participation. Next slide, please. So here is the people of color and indigenous folks participation, also continuing to go up, bouncing back after the winter. Slide 48, please. So for this one, I want to point out that the systems contract currently only has about 270 or so hours. So with the limited amount of data, we didn't create a chart for it. In your handouts, you can see there's been a little bit of participation from Asian males, but then other than that, it's very limited in the amount of work hours for us to be able to track and present some meaningful data. So here is the Franklin O&M workforce participation. Something I want to point out is in the past couple of months here, there's been a big increase in the unspecified category and participation there. So MDHR is working with Ellis Black, the prime contractor, to identify which ethnicities the work hours will be categorized as, because it's pretty uncommon for us to see this high of a number for unspecified work hours. And along with that, we are also meeting with the prime contractor monthly to review the good faith efforts, similar to the civil contract, and also asking them to work with their subcontractors to hold the subcontractors accountable for their contributions as well. So, slide 49. And for here, you can see there's a decrease since the fall. And we, in talking with the contractors, there are some things that we can point to. There was a couple of African-American women working for the participation in the fall, doing the structural building of the building. And since that time, they moved on to other projects. In addition to that, in the more recent months, there's been more work, as you can see in the pictures that Jim shared. They're doing the track maintenance and the track construction and putting on the rails. So one of the subcontractors on there has a majority of workers who are white and has very low diversity, and that is on par with what's going on in the rail industry. So next slide, please. And this is more of that. So the increase in the work hours for white males will bring down the participation rate of the people of color and women. Next slide. So that rail contractor is RailWorks Delta. It's a joint venture. So we brought them into the DBE and Workforce Advisory Committee and wanted to engage them in conversation about what are their efforts towards meeting the goal and what is their diversity within their organizations. And they shared about some of their challenges recruiting women and people of color into the trades. For some of them, it's the iron workers. For the track, it's the welders. And for the electricians like Egan, they have trouble recruiting women and people of color into the trades and keeping them there. For the iron workers, the challenge is a lot of times people jump into the trades and they find that the work is too physical for them, so they step out, or there are other factors that come into play. And in our discussion, we talked about what can the contractors do to increase participation. Some people suggested that there may be need for more incentives to recruit and retain the workers when they are apprentices, and it's pretty hard for them to maintain apprenticeship participation if there are challenges after a year. So that's part of the conversation that we had with them. One of the great things that we got out of that conversation, though, was the community-based organizations that was a part of this committee suggested tapping into the American Rescue Plan funds to assist in the training and support services, and then partnering with the unions to provide that type of support, because the unions, which are privately funded, are not able to access those funds. And working in partnership like that might be able to help overcome some of these barriers and increase participation for the long term and the long run down the road. I think one of the great things that the council is doing, especially the council's workforce development department, have a program called the Building Strong Communities program, and it's a great model of a collaboration between the unions, the nonprofits, and higher education. So they've been going and have been recruiting folks, and they currently have a class of participants. Right now, 7 participants were able to get into apprenticeship even before the program ended, or that completed their exploration of the trades, and then they have about 18 more continuing to explore the trades. And then the prime contractors on the construction contracts at the Southwest Light Rail are working with the Building Strong Communities team and students to show them and give them tours of the construction sites, and also find different ways to engage with their subcontractors to see if there are hiring opportunities for them to jump on as a first-year apprentice. So another great aspect of the Building Strong Communities program is that it's not just about career placement. What they are doing is they are also following up with the students up to 1 year after placement to ensure that they are successful. And in talking with the unions, they're thinking about making this a part of their best practices to make sure that people stay engaged and get the support that they need to be successful in these new careers. So this is it for my slides. I want to pass it back to the chair.
Great, thank you, John. And I know you're working with a number of other advisors and community partners to move on these results. Any questions at this point for John? Well, great. Thank you for the report. And also, we will have a follow-up to go deeper into particularly how we develop our DBE BIPOC results. And now I think we have an opportunity to move it toward communications outreach. And Sophia Guinness is she's up to.
Thank you, Chair Zelli. Jason, if you could go to the next slide, thank you. So the team is still being very active out in the community, making sure everybody is aware of what we're up to and available. So one of the ways that we do that is we're continuing to send out weekly construction updates. We continue to tick up in the amount of people subscribing to those updates with over 17,000 subscribers. And we tend to have a very high open rate with over 46% of folks actually opening the email and taking a look. It's really fun to see too. There's certain community members that forward on information and highlight things, and they'll CC us, and so we know folks are engaging with our update, and we always try to put the most relevant information out forward so folks know what's going on in the corridor. We also continue to be active on social media and putting out photos and kind of day of things as well as upcoming stuff. Our construction information work groups, we have one per city. We continue to seek their advice and engage deeply on the items that are coming up around the corridor. We get both the kind of the community's perspective in these groups, and then also talk about things that are coming up. So these groups have continued to be very valuable for us, and will continue to meet as we move through civil construction. One of the main things the team does is continues to work with our direct property owners, and we call them construction bulletins. So kind of if it's area specific activities, right? Like getting out that very specific communication to an area, whether that's multiple folks or an individual. And like mentioned before, since we're getting back to more in-person activities, really, we'd always wanted to do more construction tours, and now that it is safer to do so in the COVID environment, we had scheduled a round for June for our public, and they filled up basically within a couple days. We only have so much PPE, and sites are a little bit small, so we did have to limit them. But due to demand and whatnot, we will for sure do a couple other rounds later this summer, and in the fall we'll kind of learn from our first round of tours and work on scheduling them. And I think picked up from the discussion at the Corridor Management Committee today, definitely penciling in, starting to look for dates to bring this committee out into the field to look for things. So we will follow up with that. But the outreach team is committed to being in the community and working with folks, whether it's a little issue, big issue, or just what's going on and for how long. And that's kind of the update.
Great, thanks, Sophia. And your team is doing a great job. And I know because I participated in some of it, you have all the answers and you're really reaching a lot, those impacted and those excited about it. And I think the tours, our next meeting is coming up September 1st. Maybe we can get a tour around that time or even earlier. Any questions for Sophia at this point? I know we had one question. We can go back to. Jim has an answer for council member comments on the number of seats on an LRT. So
Yes, real-time question and answer
you will
here.
need this for all Jeopardy contests coming up.
Well, not sure about that, but we'll put that in the trivia console. So we originally had 68 passenger seats on these vehicles, and we're down to 60 with that design modification I mentioned. 6 of those went to that design modification to handle the larger aisle. There were a couple other modifications we had to bring that down to 60. So a total of 8 seats were reduced.
Interesting. Okay, so any questions, thoughts now? I know, Sophie, I didn't mean to gloss over. I know you're doing so much and really doing it a lot digitally during this period of time. The pandemic has really opened up a lot of new tools that we've been able to use. If not, September 1 will be here before we know it, and then hopefully we'll have some tours along the way. Thank you again, everybody on this call, for your continuing engagement and thought and leadership for this really important project. This is we're in the heart of it now, and kind of exciting. And if anyone who wants to see the Kenilworth Trail, drop by my house for some lemonade, because I'm right here and I hear it every morning. So it's going. All right, well, we have a few extra minutes for your day. We will see you September 1. Stay connected through the construction website, through emails, and we look forward to seeing you all soon. This meeting is adjourned, but we will certainly have an opportunity to meet soon.